Hey y'all, it's Kirsten with the Wooden Butterfly, where we're all about the transformation. And today we're transforming a vintage dining room table and chairs. And not just any dining room table and chairs. This is one that has significant sentimental value to me. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, maybe a favorite snack, and follow along so that you can hear the full story about why this family heirloom means so much to me while you watch it transform. So as you can see, here are the chairs. I'm using two of them, and here's the table. And as you can see, it's been battered and beaten. Lots of memories have been made. Well, and a lot of damage actually came from it being in storage. So she needs a makeover, and I need to figure out how to make it fit in my space. It was dated July 15th, 1963 on the table. The cushions have been recovered once, and white was not a great option. And the chairs, March 1970. So this is a 60-year-old piece that, was not top of the line. But like I said before, it has immense sentimental value. So let's get started by taking the cushions off the chairs. We'll start with the chairs first and then work our way to the table. So there are screws at the bottom of the chair that just attach that top piece. The pad and the fabric and everything. It's a really super simple thing to do if you want to update chairs that, the cushions have been around the bend a little bit, especially if you have littles with lots of spills and things. So of course we're going to spray it down with white lightning and then give it a good scrub and then rinse with clear water. Then you're going to wipe everything down with a lint-free cloth. I'm using shop towels, but you could use a t-shirt. Works really well. But we just want to remove any residue from the cleaner as well as anything that you've stirred up. So let's do a little unboxing. Basecamp reached out to me and wanted to share with me one of their masks. So this is a dust mask with active carbon filters, and it's the M model. So let's see what it looks like. It's got black and nice mesh. Okay. This must be where you adjust it. And then, and these are the carbon filters. So what they say is that this is easy breathing, skin friendly, and blocks out dust particles, smoke, fumes, and non-oil based particles. They also say because it's so breathable, it won't fog up your glasses, as well as it's washable, which is very intriguing to me because when I'm out in the Florida heat, it gets really sweaty and gross. So let's try it out. Now I'm using my Flexio 5000. And I'm going to be spraying 2 coats of Boss. Now this is a Dixie Belle product, and it blocks stains, odors, and stops bleed through. So since there were a few areas of this set that the finish had been broken through, I want to make sure that I'm sealing in any tannins that might come through the paint. Really what would come through on this is the stain. The stain is that mahogany color that has a reddish tone to it, and that will bleed through your paint. So that is why we are giving them a good prime. And newsflash, I am going to be painting this set. And then I realized I got a little too close with my sprayer, and this one chair had a ton of drips that I didn't notice until they dried. Usually I check while it's still wet so that I can at least brush them out. But I was doing too many things at once and I missed them. So we're going to give it a good sand and then put on another coat of primer. So now onto the table. We're going to start preparing that. We're going to take off the rails that are underneath that slide it in and out so that you can add the leaves. And the reason being is we're not going to use the whole table. In order for this to fit into my space, I came up with the idea of actually using only half of it. So let's take off those rails and start disassembling the table portion and repairing the table portion. So as you can see, this is the state that the legs are in. They're not staying in, they're pulling out. The glue has, gone, and they've tried to repair it and it just hasn't been working. So we're also going to pull off those little metal feet. They're brass, that is. And we're just going to pop those off, pull out there's a little tiny finish nail that holds it into place. And you just need to carefully pull them out because they are brass, so that means they're very bendable. And now that I have removed the legs, we're going to now put it all back together. I will say it took some doing. It took some reviewing some other tutorials on how to repair furniture to figure out how to get these legs off. It's like they're pulling off, so why naturally? So why is it so hard for me to get them off? But there were sections that were still adhering with the glue, and there were sections that weren't, is where the issue was coming in. So I removed all of the old glue residue, and now I'm applying a liberal amount of Gorilla wood glue to all the surfaces so that we can glue it back together again. And this took some doing because you gotta really wiggle, and I actually had to bring in some muscle reinforcement to help me kind of push this all back together again. And you'll notice that as I was trying to get one of the other legs off, it snapped. So we're now not just gluing the leg back on, but we're gluing the leg back together and then gluing all of that back on. Oh, such is life. I'm going with the fact that I think it's going to be much stronger in the end, right? So again, just applying wood to all of the surface area and then pushing it all back together. It was that rounded part right there that snapped as I was trying to pry the legs off. So we'll just glue that together and then we'll clamp it and then wipe off any of the glue that squeezed out. So I took my husband's ratchet straps and I wrapped them around all of the legs to kind of hold this all together as it was gluing and drying overnight. So we're going to be painting these chairs with Benjamin Moore Advance, and it is the color white. They're basic, off the shelf white. So we're just going to add that into our sprayer cup with 10% of water. Well, actually it's a little less, but just so you get a nice stream of paint coming off without lots of large clumps. You don't want it too thick. Then we will give everything a good scuff sand with 220 grit sandpaper. I scuff sand between every single coat. So while you are watching me put the two coats of white, which is very monotonous, let me go ahead and give you this story.
So let me explain to you why this table has such significant value to me. So let me tell you the story. This table belonged to my mother-in-law's mother-in-law. And you're probably thinking, why on earth do you say it from that manner? Isn't it your husband's grandmother? Yes, it is. But the reason why is because of the tradition that my mother-in-law's mother-in-law started years ago. When my mother-in-law married into my father-in-law's family, she was brought in and her mother-in-law treated her like one of her own. And then as my mother-in-law had children and they got married, she has now treated me as well as all 5 of her daughter-in-laws as one of her own. So this is a story of pure unconditional love. The motto of my husband's family is that they may not have much, but they always, always have love. So that is why this table means so much to me. It was passed down from my husband's grandmother to my mother-in-law, and then from my mother-in-law down to me. And it was given to me by chance because no one else in the family had space for it, nor did I have space for it, but I had the furniture and painting shop. So they gave it to me to sell or do whatever I wanted with it. And it sat in my shop as a display piece for several years, and I just never had the heart to sell it. It just meant that much to me. So it was brought to my shop. It was used as a display piece. It was then, when the shop closed, I moved it into storage. And then after I closed down my storage unit, I brought it home and it's been shuffled around here, and it's just, I don't have the space for it. So, and again, it was just about ready to be passed on and given to someone or given to Goodwill or something. And just so you know, my husband has no connection to it whatsoever. The meaning is more for me than it is for him. Of course, he has many fond memories around that table, but he was ready to be done with it the first time he moved it. So anyhow, so I was, probably scrolling Pinterest one day or something, and I thought, what if I made a breakfast nook out of the mudroom area that I have by my back door? It's where we come in from outside, but it's just off my kitchen. So I thought, what if I made that into a breakfast nook and took that table and divided it in half and used part of the chairs? That way I'm still using the piece. I still have that sentimental value, but it just works in my space. I have been holding on to it thinking, if we ever moved and had a bigger space and whatnot, but it was time. It was getting in the way and it was getting ruined. So it was time for a transformation. So if you've enjoyed this video so far, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you haven't, go ahead, click that subscribe button as well. Every single subscriber means so much to a small channel like mine. And if there's a relationship that you have with your in-laws that's special to you, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. Now, let's get back to the transformation.
So now we're going to clean up those brass feet. What you're going to do is you're going to boil some vinegar. White distilled vinegar works best. And then you're going to stick them in the water the water. You're going to stick them in the vinegar for about 3 minutes and then pull them out and then use quadruple zero steel wool and just polish them right up. They come out so beautiful. Look at that. It's like night and day. Now there is a little worn spot, but a little patina doesn't hurt. Now I reattached some wood blocks underneath because now there's a new center of gravity. So we need this the base completely centered in the middle of the table. So I cut some blocks and now I'm just screwing them to the center of the table so that the base fits on there securely. Let's head outside and start repairing the table. So this is the mask that I was talking about earlier. It is the base camp mask. So put that on since we're going to be doing a lot of sanding. So I'm using 150 grit sandpaper and I'm just giving everything a good scuff sand. I'm trying to even out the surface as much as I can. As you can see, there are several gouges, scratches, I should say, and then several places where the finish has lifted. So I'm trying to feather out those areas as much as I can.
I'm using drywall mud to get into these little scratches and things because it's a much thinner consistency and will get down into those cracks and crevices really nicely. We're using just some wallboard joint compound. I'm smushing it in and then laying it on kind of thick to make sure I get it everywhere. As you can see, there was a lot of damage.
And now I'm just adding some Bondo where the holes are, where the two pieces sides of the table would join together, as well as there's one little section on the top that has some veneer that's chipped off that we will fill with the Bondo as well. The Bondo is a much harder substance, so it's going to just give you it's going to fill those larger gaps much better than the drywall mud. And I will say, using the drywall mud, this was my first time. It was experimental. I saw somebody else do it and I had it on hand. I had run out of wood filler, so I said, you know what, let me go ahead, let me use it. But it didn't work as well as I would have hoped. There are still some areas that you can see after the whole thing is finished. But unfortunately, I didn't see them until the whole thing was finished and it was too late to go back. So live and learn. Maybe this is okay for maybe like a grain filler or something, but it didn't work that great for this particular application. I will say though that the mask has been working great. It really helped with all of this drywall mud dust and then Bondo dust. So, and it was hot, so I wasn't getting all sweaty and nasty and everything. So now we're just sanding everything down so that it's smooth. Then we'll come on and back into the spray tent and give everything a good wipe down after I've removed all the glue residue, and there was a crack actually down the center that I glued back together and sanded. And then we'll go ahead and use that Boss primer on the base as well. I love spraying pieces like this because of all the little details. The sprayer just really gets in there. This would have taken me 3 times as long if I was doing it by hand. So, and it gives a nice, that just nice, smooth, professional looking finish as well. This Boss is actually in the, this is a white colored Boss. They have clear and they have gray, but since the chairs were going to be white, I obviously wanted a primer of white. It also makes it so much easier that what having the top separated from the bottom. That's why I didn't attach it to begin with, because it was just easier to maneuver and spray when it's in separate pieces. It's really hard to get up underneath there, and when the table is on or if it's fastened on, it's doable, but it just made it a whole lot easier since I already had it detached. I said, we'll just go ahead and get it done. And we'll do the same process where we put one coat on, then we scuff sand, and then put the second coat on. The Boss is really good if you let it work its magic, let it sit and dry overnight for the best sealing properties. Let it cure a little bit before you actually put paint on top of it. So I was spraying and spraying and spraying, and it was quite warm. And as if you saw my last video, when it is this warm, it tends to have problems with the sprayer because the paint tends to dry in the nozzle. So I got as much on as I could, got it all covered, kept cleaning my tip, but then I just let it sit overnight, and I started again fresh in the morning when it was much cooler. Now that we have been out in the sun and sanding and whatnot, we're just going to go ahead and throw that mask in the washer. I'm putting it on Eco Warm, and then I'll let it air dry. Now it's fresh and early. The sun is barely coming up over the trees. And look at that color, y'all. You ready for it? This is the color of the table. So this is Dixie Belle's Mermaid Tail. And this is the breakfast nook that it's going. So let me explain. This is the bench seat that I want to build. All the walls are going to get white. And then the table will be the mermaid tail. The chair's in white with a nice bold print. Now this is a chalk mineral paint. So we'll put 2 coats of this on. And then we'll have to put a sealer on as well, and that will do here in just a few minutes. I actually was able to get 2 coats on. I think I started around 6:30 to 7 a.m. and then I finished sometime, I probably was done spraying and allowed it to dry and was able to get my sealer on around 10 a.m. before it got blistering hot. So I at least got 2 coats of sealer on, and I waited to the evening to put the rest of the sealer on. And now it's time to cover those cushions. I couldn't find exactly what I wanted, so I found a shower curtain, y'all. I mean, it's probably a little too thin of a fabric, but it's the closest to what I could find with my coloring. So my color palette is red, teal, and yellow. And finding something with all 3 of those colors in it was really difficult. I could find a red and yellow, but it normally would have like a navy blue. And it just didn't work well. But anyhow, so I absolutely love Wendy from Chair Whimsy. Go check her out on Instagram and all over. She is a fabulous chair artist, and I wanted a little touch of that myself, and this is the closest I could get. I certainly need some help with my upholstery skills. I looked up a few tutorials and went back and looked at a few more, and I did the best I could. It's not perfect, but they're covered, and like I said, that's why I got a shower curtain, y'all, so that I didn't, ruin a bunch of expensive fabric. I probably need to take one of her courses and learn the proper way to actually cover a cushion. But basically, I got it on there and got it as smooth as possible. And I love my little Stanley stapler that works so well. Now we'll just fasten those cushions onto the chair, back again, and let me know. What do you think? I am in love, and I actually really like them in white. I don't do white very often, but I really liked it. Now we'll reattach that base to the top of the table. It's just 4 screws that go through the top, and then reattach those brass feet, carefully putting in those little nails. And there is the table all done.
So let me give you a quick review of the base camp mask. My first impression for using it this last couple weeks is I really like it. As far as masks go, I don't think any of them are going to be 100%, comfortable, but this is certainly super breathable. It, is so adjustable so that it can fit on your face really well. And then the fact that I can throw it in the wash, that sold it for me, because as you saw, I'm outside. It's hot here. You can see I'm flushed right now because it's so hot. And I can, after a long day of sanding and spraying, I can just throw this in the wash and pop in a new filter, and it's nice and clean the next time I wear it. The other masks that I have don't have such ease of use. It's got a lot of plastic and rubber that sits up against your face, and it gets just kind of gross. I've tried wiping it down and cleaning it and whatnot, but it's still just it's gross. So this definitely does it. I didn't have a whole lot of moisture on my face, which was awesome because of this breathable mesh, as well as, like I said, you can just throw it in the wash and then it smells great. So I would say 2 thumbs up. I really liked it. So if you would like to grab yourself one of these awesome masks, you can go ahead and click the link that's in the description. And if you use the code, the wooden butterfly, you get an extra 10% off.
Okay, so do you remember what it looked like before? Very, very beaten down. And now she's beautiful. I mean, when I first sprayed this color, y'all, I was even a little scared. But once it all came together, I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful, especially once I get the walls and everything else done. I sure do hope that my mother-in-law would approve. I'm sure she'd just be happy that we are actually using the piece and it not getting ruined anymore. And also now I can continue on the tradition as a boy mom to pass down that tradition to my daughter-in-laws. And maybe, who knows, maybe someday they'll get this table passed down to them as well. So I am joining another challenge, y'all, and I'm going to be working on this piece. So Ivy Lane Interiors is doing another challenge, and the challenge is Old World Opulence is the theme, and I can't choose a color. So I need your help. The mural that you'll see here in just a second is going above it. So would you pick A or B for the paint color? Let me know in the comments below, and see you next week, y'all.